Today's video, I'll be addressing a series of questions that have come through from a viewer. Some of the questions are as follows. How do I find information of people who actually own distressed properties? What is the legal implication for, and contracts that one needs to use for both buyers and sellers? The time frame to actually finish a deal and practical ways of finding both investors as well as buyers. So this particular question has come from a video that I'll make reference to below so that you can also see that, and accordingly I have responded. However, I believe that if this particular viewer has questions of this nature, that you may also be sitting there at some given point having similar questions. My name is Genevieve Stafford Jack. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, I trust that you will find this particular video interesting. And if you are returning, welcome back to another interesting video. Across the internet, and many people here in South Africa as well, they make property wholesaling sound like the simple, easy task. So if you don't have property investing education, you may find it a little bit challenging or potentially far-fetched. You may find an instance where you find the person directly. So how do I find them? I've driven the area, here's the deal. There are toolkits like Lightstone, TPN, Windeed, just to mention a few, where you'll be able to find the details of somebody that actually owns the property, right? How would you find these different toolkits? The property industry uses these different toolkits for various reasons. Like, for example, the Lightstone property toolkit is actually a research engine where there's a lot of people that are in property as well as vehicle finance that particular system updates. So you would have to subscribe to these different toolkits. Property investors use them, real estate agents use them. So it's not a specific space where it's only for property investors, but we're looking at these different tools differently. When you get into Lightstone, it's called, I think it was still called Easy Contact. You will then end up paying an extra amount of money to get the contact details. Now, what I found over time is that people have become very savvy. So now, if I get into Lightstone, because it's a subscribed service, you obviously need to be serious about what you're doing in property, right? I get the details of the person. Some people, what do? They go onto social media and they start checking social media platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn just to see what could they pick up in terms of similarities. So in these different social media platforms, you'll actually find that some people will say, okay, if this person is in Johannesburg, can I see any of these names that match Johannesburg and see how I could stalk them, or whatever people do, right? So there's a lot of different ways, I believe, where you'll be able to get the details, or on the social media platform, which also is above board. So I trust that answers your question sufficiently. Now, moving on to the next question, right? How do you find investors and buyers? So I'm going to make a reference to a video up here, how I've shared with you my experience into being into being sold property coaching, and my experience into actually finding the property investors. I'm going to show you a practical way, because, the viewer mentioned practical. I'm going to show you a snippet from the Property Investors Network that I was part of. Now, SAPN advertises their services. There's nothing formal that you need to have or not to have to be part of the SA Property Investors Network, South Africa Property Investors Network, okay? So what had happened is Andrew Walker, being a South African, started his journey in London. And when he came home, he had found that there was no networking events that were localized. So what he did is he came up with this brainchild of SAPN, which we call SAPN, South Africa Property Investors Network. So I became a premier member there. Why? Because I was able to then get in front of many people who were interested in property investing. So what I did was I would put my deals together. Obviously, being the host of that particular event, everything would go through Andrew, and we would have a time slot to go in the front and present our deals. And here is the quick snippet. Deals that are for sale on the table. looking for investors that are HMO, multi-let, student accommodation, and Airbnb investors. You ticked any of those boxes, I've got 2 deals. One is in Northcliffe and one is in Melville. Potentially you will walk away with 26, no, that's the flip part. Potentially you will walk away with between 18 and 25% passive income. And if you do decide, for some strange reason you want to do a flip, then you'll be able to walk away with between 26 and 44%. I was just putting those percentages up here because I'm dealing with one deal too many at the moment. So if you fit into that category, but you're specifically looking for passive income, talk to me at the break and I'll give you a lot more details.
Thanks, Jen. Just mention the categories again. So just mention them again.
HMO, that is the house. HMO, multi-let, Airbnb, and students accommodation. We were taught that we don't find deals, we create them. And that's why it will fall under one of these 4 passive income stream categories.
Awesome. Let's give a round of applause.
Cool. So now that you've seen that quick snippet, right? That's how I got in front of many property investors at once. That was one way. The second way is in the classroom. When I got into the property investing classroom, I got to meeting people around me. And over time, I found that some people were actually struggling to find property opportunities. Some may not have had the time to actually find these property investing opportunities. And because at the time I got into it without any money, I needed to get creative on what am I going to do within property investing, and wholesaling was one of the few options that I had, and therefore I trusted that particular example with the video to show you how I'd gotten about finding investors is something practical for you. In terms of the legal implications and contracts, understand this: when an investor is involved with the property wholesaler, they should have what we call a non-disclosure agreement. Basically, it's just saying from wholesaler to investor, look, this is an income stream. I'm going to find property. I'm going to do my due diligence and bring the proposal to you. But in this non-disclosure agreement, it's actually saying, could I solidify what belongs to me in theory, which is I've harnessed all the things that I need to for this particular deal. So don't go behind my back to actually swindle me out of this deal. Now, on the other hand is, from a property wholesaling point of view, there's 2 things that property wholesalers do. When they find the deal, now dealing with the seller, right? When they find this particular deal, they are able to sign an offer to purchase. However, I always say, if you're new into wholesaling, be careful of that, right? Especially if you do not know which suspensive conditions to put down and how to actually have a walkaway strategy from this particular deal. Because there's going to be a point that a property investor will let you down. People are people, regardless of how much money they do have, right? And also the assumptions that we think that they come with. Now, the second part of that is that you, as the wholesaler, being the middleman, creates a relationship with the real estate agent, and then you are able to bring the investor in some parts of the deal. Again, you would have to have strategy on how to solidify this particular relationship. So the implications of these contracts are far extending if you do not understand the offer to purchase and you do not understand what happens with the property investing space. Now, I'm just double checking. Have I answered all the questions and then made reference points so that you can actually understand that there's so much more to wholesaling that meets the naked eye? And in terms of practical ways, as the viewer had mentioned, on finding investors and buyers, I would love to hear from the community following me down below. Type out what is your practical ways, because up here I'm going to point to 9 strategies on finding investment opportunities. It all goes back to how you follow these things up. And these are not an exhaustive list, because if you are techno savvy, you could create a website and then advertise on Facebook. These leads go through to your lead generation system and you are able to follow up on these particular leads. So who would be wanting to sell? People that are in a dire situation. If they have got an advert in front of them that says, I can help you sell your property, or I buy property, whichever way you're going to look at it, right? They're going to see it as an opportunity to sell their property, more so when property is run down. What I need you just to think about it, right? When property is run down, people don't want everyone coming into their space. And there's a lot of property that is like that. So I see the space of property investing not just as a business, but as a way to help people through their situation. I'm going to point to another video. So after you found the property, using the different toolkits that I've shared with you, and then analyzing to see, is this indeed a property investing opportunity? I did a live video on where you can run numbers using a property deal calculator to actually understand, is this a deal or is this not a deal? What are the things that you need to look out for, the different types of conversation that you will have with the real estate agent? So property wholesaling, as shared, is so much more than the simple strategy that many people call it. My thinking is, if you don't have property investing experience or property investing education, you may go about not knowing some of the intricate details in the background. I'm not going to sell you into my class. I'm not going to even talk about the actual class that I do have. But what I'm going to encourage you is get your property investing education, because all those questions that I've just answered throughout this particular video is really just centered on your understanding in property investing. Because remember, flipping, which is buying, renovating and selling a property, buying to hold, which is buying, potentially renovating and renting out your property in multiple strategies, or getting into the creative finance space where you actually need to know all of this information so that you can join forces with somebody that's got money, or sell a deal to somebody that's got money, or potentially do something like a back-to-back deal. If we have to come onto YouTube and literally explain intricate details, I promise you this, every video that people that have got experience like myself would probably extend to 10 to 15 hours. And this is what we have learned and invested in ourselves. So we had gone through property investing education, 15,000 Rand later, 3 days, 9 to 7 of training. Unpacking all of that we'd learned over 3 days, we are then paid a further 95,000 Rand in property coaching to understand so much more that goes into these different strategies. And having the coach with you, or having a coach with you, literally zooming in on your situation, that's what you'll be learning during the coaching space on how could you make the property investing strategies work for where you are. Now, we didn't just go and put in over 100,000 Rand of education for nothing. You know, some days I do feel like, did we pay that much? But on the other hand I'm very, very thankful that we had gone that far. So my encouragement to everybody that is watching YouTube or going on social media, understand that there's so much that we can come across and share with you. What I endeavor to do on my channel is to share with you my aha moments, the mistakes that I've made, and things that I've gone through. And I love the fact that this viewer took time to actually formulate a long comment to actually challenge, hey, are you doing this? Or are you just talking on hypothetical situations? So I trust that this video is sufficient. Oh, and before I forget, the viewer also wanted me to do an end-to-end process of when I find the deal, how I go through putting the deal together and selling it. Now, I can do that. There's one disclaimer that I would love to make. Think about this. If this was your property that you were selling, your details would be part of my video. If you were the investor buying the deal from me, your details would be part of my video. Now, just think about this again. If you are the investor that bought my deal, how many people would now have access to your details? So when we ask about these things, I'm very, very happy to put the process together for you. But to name a name is always difficult. Why? Because just think about what I said. What if you were the seller with the rundown property? Would you like all your details, including name, surname, ID, and all of that, to be on the World Wide Web? If you were a property investor purchasing these type of deals, would you like the person that has actually sold you the deal to put your details on the World Wide Web? So if I go through this particular process, I promise you this much. I will definitely go and fine tune everything that what I've done, right? However, mentioning the person's name is out of the question. Why? Because I have found that if immediately you think so-and-so is a property investor, how many other people are looking for property investors out there? And would you like to be bombarded by people that you don't know from a bar of soap? I just drop that there, but give me your opinion nonetheless. And if you are the viewer that put those questions together, again, comment down below and let me know what you think of this particular video. Have I addressed some of your concerns? But I promise you, there is a video that I am brewing, and I will make sure that I go through the end-to-end process with you. But where I find that it's time consuming, I am promised to make references to videos that I've done in the past. And if you, much like the viewers saying, yo, that was a mouthful, maybe I knew, maybe I didn't know, I am interested in property investing and I really want to get into them, what I will do is I'll put up a playlist here that's called Getting Started in Property. And if you say, okay, I like longer form training content that I want to walk away with practical steps, description below, there's 3 hours of training. It's not just me involved. I brought in a lawyer and I actually had over 100 people that I was training. It's just really just setting the ground for understanding property. I know that there are actionable nuggets in there, and if you don't find it practical, then I am not the person that you should be listening to in terms of teaching. And I would then definitely encourage you to type in property investing in the YouTube search panel so that you can find others that can teach you on the level of which you choose to. I trust that that is all good. So am I going to see you up in the playlist or down in the training?